In early October of 2017, the DEA received a disturbing anonymous tip deep in the Appalachian mountain range. Near a forgotten mining town called Black Hollow, a powerful drug cartel was allegedly operating an underground trafficking route. But what caught the agency's attention wasn't just the narcotics, it was the method. The cartel was rumored to be using a complex web of 19th-century mining tunnels, some of which weren't on any official map, to move shipments unseen. These weren't amateurs. This was precise, calculated, and deeply hidden. The DEA needed their best, and that meant calling in agents Riley Torres and Dana Vos, two of the most respected female field operatives in the Bureau. Both Riley and Dana had earned reputations as fearless, methodical, and unshakable under pressure. Riley specialized in high-risk infiltration, fluent in multiple languages, and known for surviving 6 months embedded in a South American drug syndicate. Dana, on the other hand, was the agency's top intelligence decoder, known for spotting hidden patterns and encrypted routes where others saw noise. Together, they were considered an unstoppable duo. The DEA briefed them on a top-secret operation: enter Black Hollow under the cover of forest rangers, gather intel, and track the cartel's tunnel system from the inside. The timeline was short. The danger, immense. By October 15, the women were airdropped into a remote location near the mine entrance, carrying only lightweight field gear, encrypted communication devices, and enough supplies for 72 hours. Their last known contact came at 10:47 p.m. that same night, when Agent Torres radioed the command center. Her voice was calm but clipped. "We're descending into the south shaft. Tunnel integrity looks unstable, but recent footprints, sets, they're down here." The radio crackled with interference. A few seconds of silence followed. Then, Agent Vos said one final sentence before the line cut off. "I think we're being watched." The command center immediately attempted to re-establish contact, but every signal was met with static or dead air. Within hours, a rapid response team was mobilized. But due to the remote terrain and worsening weather, they didn't reach the location until nearly 36 hours later. What they found was chilling. The entry point to the mine had been deliberately obscured with branches and stone, as if someone or something wanted to keep it sealed. Nearby, they discovered the remnants of a fire pit, a broken compass, and a torn page from a field notebook. The rest of the area was eerily untouched. No signs of a struggle. No blood. No trace of either agent. Despite a week-long ground search involving K-9 units, aerial drones, and local guides, not a single clue emerged about where the agents had gone. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. Inside the initial stretch of the mine, searchers reported hearing strange echoes like footsteps that didn't match their own, or voices calling out in the dark that quickly faded away. A few investigators even claimed to have seen fleeting shadows just beyond their flashlights. But nothing concrete was ever found. Eventually, with no leads and mounting pressure from the public, the operation was quietly shut down. Riley Torres and Dana Vos were officially listed as missing in action. But those who were there knew something far more sinister had happened below the surface. Following the chilling last transmission from Agents Torres and Vos, the DEA's Appalachian Command Center descended into controlled panic. Standard protocol was to give the agents a 2-hour communication window, but when repeated hails received only static, emergency escalation procedures were enacted. Surveillance satellites were redirected to scan the area. Infrared scans picked up no heat signatures. Drones were launched first for recon, then with audio amplifiers. The surrounding forest was silent, unnaturally so. It was as though the mountains themselves had absorbed the women's presence. There were no animal calls, no rustling branches, just a suffocating stillness. The next morning, a specialized DEA retrieval team reached the last known coordinates. The team, composed of ex-military operatives and tactical rescue experts, had been trained for worst-case scenarios, ambushes, cave-ins, hostile insurgents, but what they found didn't match any known pattern. The base camp Riley and Dana had set up was still intact. Their packs were there, sleeping bags untouched. A half-eaten protein bar rested beside Dana's open field manual. There were no signs of conflict, no blood trails, no broken branches, no shell casings. But what did catch their attention were the marks, deep scratches in the bark of surrounding trees, all clustered around the mine entrance. The marks were too irregular to be made by a blade, yet too symmetrical to be accidental. Some looked like symbols or runes etched high up, as if made by someone or something standing nearly 8 feet tall. Inside the mine's mouth, investigators found fresh boot prints, 2 sets leading in. But there were no returning tracks. More disturbing still was a faint scent of ozone in the air, like something electrical had passed through. A nearby rock had black scorch marks on it, but there was no evidence of fire. One team member remarked that it felt like walking into a forgotten place that should not have been disturbed. Despite their training, members of the retrieval unit began to report strange sensations, dizziness, pressure in the ears, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Equipment glitched out, flashlights flickered, radios buzzed with garbled voices that no one could decipher. One operative reported seeing movement in the tunnel's shadows, only to find nothing when he turned his light. The team set motion-triggered cameras around the cave's perimeter. Overnight, several of them were triggered. But when the footage was reviewed, the frames were blank, just static, or the lens facing downward as if the camera had been violently knocked aside. Over the next 4 days, the retrieval unit expanded the search grid outward, but every direction led to the same frustrating result: emptiness. Bloodhounds brought in from nearby counties refused to go near the mine entrance. A few even whined and cowered when forced close. Locals who had agreed to help abruptly backed out, warning the agents not to go poking around in those old holes. One old man claimed the land was cursed, that Black Hollow had once been the site of an ancient native burial system the mines had disturbed. The search was extended for 11 more days before the order came from above: stand down. The agents were declared lost. The official report would say communication failure, presumed fatalities due to cavern. But among the retrieval team, no one believed that, and no one dared go back inside. After the disappearance of agents Torres and Voss, Black Hollow quietly fell off the DEA's radar. At least, that's what the public was led to believe. The operation was labeled classified, and the mine was officially marked as unstable and sealed off. But the locals knew better. In the months following the agent's disappearance, whispers began to spread through nearby mountain communities. Hikers who ventured too close to the abandoned mining region came back, changed, quiet, pale, avoiding eye contact. Some claimed to have heard strange echoes in the forest, echoes that mimicked human speech but were slightly off, as though something was pretending to be human. The most chilling tales came from campers who set up near the old trails. One group of college students reported hearing a woman's voice crying for help from deep within the trees. When they followed the sound, they found nothing but an ancient mine shaft, covered in vines and wooden planks. They left in a panic, only to return the next morning to find their tents slashed open and the word below carved into a nearby tree trunk. Rangers chalked it up to local pranksters or drug users, but the pattern repeated. Year after year, new sightings, new warnings, same area. Then came the Glyphs. Amateur explorers and paranormal investigators began uploading footage online showing symbols carved into tree trunks and cave walls, strange geometric patterns that looked Aztec or Mayan. But scholars quickly debunked the claims. The carvings didn't match any known human language. More eerily, they seemed to shift slightly over time, as if the wood and stone were changing them. A few researchers believed they were some form of warning. Others thought they were a ritual language. But one cryptographer, who examined high-resolution images anonymously, left a comment online that simply read, "They mark passageways not for people, but for something else." He never posted again. Locals eventually gave the area a nickname, the Hollow Gate. It became taboo to even speak of it in certain families. Elderly residents would clutch their crosses when the subject was brought up, muttering old prayers. One woman, a retired school teacher, claimed her brother vanished near that region in 1994. His body was never found, but his boots were discovered on a boulder placed side by side as if he'd taken them off and walked willingly into the forest, barefoot. His footprints ended 20 feet from the cave mouth. After that, the woman never returned to the woods again. Despite official warnings, thrill seekers and ghost hunters continued to explore Black Hollow, some live streaming their journeys for clout. Most came back shaken, refusing to speak about what they heard or saw. A few never returned at all. In time, the government posted federal property do not enter signs around the deeper trails, backed by armed patrols during the off-season, but the forest had already developed a reputation, not just as haunted, but as sentient. And still, every now and then, someone would claim to hear 2 women's voices in the distance, overlapping, whispering through the trees. "We're still down here. Please help." 8 years after agents Torres and Voss vanished without a trace, Black Hollow had become nothing more than a shadow in government archives and local legend. The official story was buried, the mine entrance boarded up and left to rot in silence. But fate had other plans. In the spring of 2025, a private mining corporation, Sterling Core Minerals, was granted exploratory rights in the region. Tasked with locating rare earth elements vital to national tech contracts, the area assigned for their drilling was less than 5 miles from the abandoned DEA site, though the miners had no knowledge of the operation that once took place there. On the third week of drilling, the crew hit something unexpected: a hollow void beneath the surface, far deeper than any map or geological scan had predicted. At first, they assumed it was an air pocket or an old shaft collapse, but when a camera drone was lowered in, what it revealed was unsettling. A perfectly symmetrical chamber, lined with jagged stone walls and unnatural-looking carvings. The walls appeared to breathe in the dusty light, and scattered across the floor were scraps of rusted metal, tactical webbing, and 2 small metallic tags, half buried in the dirt. They were immediately retrieved and handed over to the site foreman. The tags were unmistakable. Each bore the unmistakable seal of the DEA, scratched and worn by time. But the names were still visible: Torres, R. and Voss, D. For a moment, the mining crew thought they had uncovered a historical crime scene, but when one of the men brushed aside more debris near the wall, he found something even stranger: a piece of military-grade glass, embedded in a cracked black frame. It was a DEA-issued encrypted tablet, miraculously intact. Though covered in dust and dried mud, it powered on. The timestamp on the device: October 17, 2017. 2 days after the agents had gone dark. The miners immediately radioed their corporate HQ, but before orders could be given, curiosity got the better of one of the shift supervisors. He accessed the tablet's media folder and discovered something bizarre: audio logs, encrypted messages, and a corrupted video file labeled Final Entry. Only the audio worked. It began with static and background panting, followed by Agent Voss's voice, trembling and urgent. "If this is found, this isn't a tunnel. It's a something else. They're not cartel. They're not human. No, we're here. They see in the dark. Riley's hurt. I don't think we're getting out. Please, if anyone hears this, don't go deeper. Don't follow the path marked with bones." Before the miners could process what they had heard, one of their own experienced deep driller named Carlos Vega ventured farther into the cavern. Drawn by something he described as a low humming he could feel in his bones. The others watched via helmet cam as he turned a corner and entered a larger chamber, then froze. The video showed him staring upward, mouth slightly open, whispering, "They're watching us." Then the feed cut to black. No scream. No fall. No signal. The company initiated an emergency lockdown, but by the time search teams arrived, the chamber had collapsed, and Carlos Vega was never seen again. The rescue operation for Carlos Vega was swift but fruitless. Within 24 hours, the entrance to the lower chamber had caved in, almost as if intentionally sealed. Engineers tried to stabilize the surrounding rock, but every attempt to excavate was met with further collapses. Eventually, they were forced to chart a new entry point from another shaft, this one leading deeper underground, farther than any documented section of the original mining tunnels. What the second team found was not a cave. It was a constructed space, man-made or something else, with walls too smooth, too symmetrical, and too unnatural for ordinary geology. At the heart of this newly unearthed chamber stood a massive stone structure, circular and cracked, resembling some sort of primitive altar. Surrounding it were meticulously arranged piles of bones, animal and human, placed in spiraling patterns as if part of a ritual. The remains were yellowed and ancient, except for 2 freshly decayed skeletons positioned at either side of the altar, one still bearing the faint remnants of a tactical vest. Their wrists had been bound with rotted nylon cord. The DEA agents Riley Torres and Dana Voss hadn't disappeared without a trace, after all. But something in the way their bones were placed upright and symmetrical suggested they hadn't simply died. They had been presented. It was then that a junior tech, scanning the chamber with a ground-penetrating radar, located something partially buried beneath the altar stone. As the team carefully cleared the debris, they unearthed a hardened metallic case, sealed but not locked. Inside was the original encrypted tablet belonging to Agent Voss, the one previously believed to have been lost in the earlier collapse. This tablet was older than the one found days before. Its data logs older, untouched. Somehow, both had survived, but this one contained the first recordings, an unedited trail of horror. The very first entry was made within hours of the agents entering the mine. The final one. 3 days later, they played the last log, their breath held. Agent Torres's voice came first, dry, slow, as if she hadn't spoken in hours. We're not alone, we never were. The walls whisper at night. The shadows move even when our lights are steady. I can't find the entrance anymore. It's gone. Dana says we're walking in circles, but the tunnels keep changing. Then, in the background, the sound of something scraping stone against stone growing louder. Closer. I saw it, Dana whispered. It doesn't blink, it doesn't breathe, it just waits. Please, don't come looking for us. Perhaps the most chilling part wasn't the voice logs, it was what was found next. Behind the altar, etched deep into the wall, with what appeared to be sharpened bone, were words in jagged English, carved repeatedly. We were not the first, we are not the last. And beneath that, 2 final words. It waits. Once the tablet recovered from behind the bone altar was decrypted, the contents shook everyone involved in the operation. It wasn't just audio, this time several corrupted video files had survived. The IT team worked around the clock to restore them, operating from a secure facility, while DEA officials, now urgently re-engaged with the case, pressured for updates. One technician, visibly shaken during playback, reportedly muttered, "This shouldn't exist. This shouldn't have been recorded." The footage was grainy, most of it in night vision. But what it captured told a story more terrifying than any could have imagined. The first few clips were mundane Riley and Dana navigating narrow tunnels, scanning rock walls, marking their path with glow sticks. They talked about strange airflow patterns, heard distant metallic clinks, and mentioned feeling watched. Then, about 20 minutes into the restored footage, the atmosphere changed. In one clip, the women came to a sudden stop. Off camera, a low growl guttural, inhuman reverberated through the stone corridor. Riley raised her flashlight and panned it slowly, her breathing quickening. In the far distance, something flickered past the lens, not a figure, but a shape, too tall and too thin, skittering just beyond the edge of the light. Dana whispered, "Did you see that? It's crawling upside down." One of the most disturbing videos showed Dana standing still, frozen, eyes wide with terror. The camera attached to Riley's tactical vest captured what she saw, a humanoid figure crouched in the tunnel ahead. Entirely black, as if light refused to touch it. Its limbs were too long. Its head tilted sideways like it was studying. Then it slowly receded into the dark without footsteps, without sound. Dana began to sob. "It's not just one," she said. "They're following us." From that moment on, the footage became more frantic. Sudden movements, muffled screams, static bursts. Riley's voice, trembling, whispered at one point, "There's no way out. Every turn leads us back here." The most horrifying segment was less than 30 seconds long. Dana, covered in dirt and blood, was alone, clutching the tablet to her chest. She activated the front-facing camera, speaking directly into the lens. "If anyone sees this, don't come down here. We tried to map it, we tried to follow the echo trail. But the walls change. The tunnels move. There's something in the rock, in the air. We're breathing it. I don't think it lets you leave unless it wants you to." She paused, eyes darting off screen. Then, in a blur of motion, the footage cut to black, but not before something pale, a hand or a claw reached around the corner behind her. After reviewing the footage, the DEA quietly sealed the files and classified the incident under Omega-level anomaly, the same classification used in only 3 other known cases. Every person who viewed the raw footage was required to sign a federal non-disclosure agreement. But still, rumors leaked. A former analyst, speaking under a false identity on a conspiracy podcast, described the beings in the footage as predatory illusions, shadows given shape, not physical, not alive, but intelligent. The footage became infamous in underground forums, with some claiming to have seen frames that showed dozens of these things clinging to the walls. Watching, waiting. In the weeks following the discovery of the footage, the entire mining site was shut down under orders from a high federal task force. Sterling Core Minerals was forced into silence under the pretense of an industrial gas leak, and the remaining crew were quietly relocated, their contracts terminated with full payouts and gag orders. Overnight, armed men in unmarked trucks descended on Black Hollow. They set up floodlights, erected fencing around the old mine entrance, and installed biometric access gates. Local news attempted to cover the unusual activity, but their broadcasts were swiftly taken down, replaced by statements about environmental contamination. What truly happened in those final weeks has never been confirmed, only whispered about. Internal memos, leaked months later by an anonymous whistleblower, revealed that the case had been reassigned under a different government agency, one that didn't officially exist, Division 77 Special Anomalous Threat Response. According to the documents, the footage from Agent Voss's tablet was placed in a sealed vault, labeled Project Hollow Eyes. Other files referenced similar underground incidents across the globe, some dating back to the 1950s. One redacted report mentioned entities that reside beneath human awareness, while another warned, "Do not engage, do not acknowledge, do not awaken." Yet, despite these terrifying cautions, no public statement was ever issued, not about the agents, not about the cave. Locals, however, noticed a change. At night, strange lights began flickering within the tree line, soft pulsing, like underwater lanterns. Wildlife patterns shifted. Animals that once roamed freely in the forest now avoided it entirely. Strange sounds echoed out of the mountains, low, droning hums and rhythmic knocks that some said resembled chanting. Several hikers who ignored the new restricted zone vanished without a trace. One hunter was found days later, stumbling through the woods barefoot, eyes bloodshot and wide with terror. He couldn't speak, only scrawled the same word repeatedly. In the dirt beside him, echoes. To this day, the Black Hollow mine remains under federal control. Surveillance drones patrol the perimeter. Unauthorized entry is punishable by prosecution or worse. Still, every few years, someone tries. Paranormal investigator, a documentary crew, an amateur cryptid hunter. Most come back, claiming the mountain watches them. A few return pale, silent, and unwilling to talk about what they saw. And some never return at all. The most unsettling incident occurred just a year after the site was locked down. A game warden discovered a torn piece of tactical fabric on a fence post, weathered but still marked with a faded D-patch. It hadn't been there the day before. But perhaps the most disturbing part of all is this. Even after all the government efforts to contain the site, encrypted shortwave radio bursts matching the same frequency Agent Torres used in her final transmissions still activate once a month, always on the same night. Always at 3:17 a.m., the message is barely audible, almost consumed by static. But if you listen closely, you can hear a faint voice, female, tired, whispering, "Still here, still waiting. Don't forget us." So now, the question remains, what really happened beneath Black Hollow? Were Riley Torres and Dana Voss victims of a government cover-up, ancient entities, or something far more unexplainable? The truth has been buried, sealed beneath concrete, classified files, and silence. But the whispers haven't stopped. The signals haven't stopped. And somewhere, deep underground, something is still watching, still waiting. Maybe the story was never about finding the agents. Maybe it's about making sure no one ever follows them again. Because once you hear the echo, it's already too late.